bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the THW Edmonton Oilers Overtime. Oilers Overtime with the Hockey Raiders, basically. My name is Jim Parsons. I'm here with thehockeyraiders.com. We've got a couple of the members of our regular crew with us. We are recording this. For those of you that don't know, we record this usually one night before it airs. We're doing this in the intermission of the preseason game between the Seattle Kraken and the Edmonton Oilers. So we might keep this one a little shorter than we normally do. But Colton Pankey is with us. Colton, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing good. And Julian Mongillo is with us as well, all the way from Toronto, watching this on his stream. Julian, how are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to stay connected as much as I can because it's hard to get those preseason games down here, but we got the stream going, so I'm able to catch some Oilers hockey.
Well, it's been an interesting game so far. The Oilers are clicking on the power play. They're looking really good. They've got their top six in. Seattle doesn't really have their top six in, but Oilers are clicking. It's 3-0 at the end of the first, looking pretty good. But one of the things we're going to talk about, really the main topic we're going to talk about with a few subtopics underneath, is the idea that as exciting as this game is and as great as the Oilers played against Calgary in their first preseason game, and it looks like they're clicking against Seattle, there's still this underlying feeling that these fans are just never going to look at this as a glass half full sort of situation, right? There's this idea that the Edmonton Oilers, I almost said WWE because I cover professional wrestling for some other websites, but the Edmonton Oilers are not always going to be looked at as a positive. It's like there's always this what's wrong with the team sort of aspect and mentality about it. We're going to talk about that today. So there's a few storylines going on in Edmonton that fit right into this narrative, and I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think about this, why the fans seem to be so negative about all this. Colton, I'll start with you. What's your initial kind of reaction to the fact? Do you see most fans as looking at the Oilers as in what's wrong with this team, or do you find most fans are really positive and it's just the vocal minority that seem to be the loudest?
Yeah, I think that's kind of social media in a nutshell. There's a lot of negativity on there. So I think if you're to look on things like Twitter, especially, it's pretty negative towards the organization. I think that comes from a lot of things. Like I said, social media is negative a lot of the time. And then I think the organization's struggles, particularly like the last decade or so, have really kind of put that into have it drawn out even more negativity. You think with the team starting to turn things around that it would change a bit. And I think if they were able to put together a bit of a playoff run, maybe even this year, that'll change. But as far as social media goes, yeah, there's a lot more negativity, it seems, than positivity out there.
Julian, is it just kind of like Colton's right? Social media is awful. I mean, we love it. We use it, especially when we're writing articles. We share our posts on there. And social media has its place and everybody is entitled to their opinion on it. Sometimes it's a little drastic and dramatic. Is it just the social media crowd, or is there a sense overall for Oilers fans that this is kind of, we haven't really been there. We've been to the playoffs the last couple of years, but we haven't performed in the playoffs very well. Are fans just tired of it, or is this just such a passionate audience that they're always going to find the negative until the positive proves them wrong? Kind of like guilty until proven innocent sort of thing, the other way around, right? What do you take for this?
Well, social media definitely has a big play, obviously, like Colton was saying. But overall, I mean, it's hard for me to kind of judge outside of social media what like something in like people in the city, let's say, or around Edmonton would kind of feel, because I don't live there. But living in Toronto, I know that, to draw parallels to the Leafs, because that's not hard to do. I mean, I think the fan aspect of it is what brings out the negative in watching the games and wanting them to do better. It's just kind of nitpicking of what we see and being able to say, why can't these guys see what we see when we watch the games on TV? So it's easy to pick out the negatives rather than the positives. And I think that a passionate fan base is always going to have that. So they're always going to be looking to where your team can improve and what they're doing wrong, rather than the glass half full type of vision that you were saying. But I think that's the up and downs of a season. That's going to be the up and downs for different teams, depending on where they are. And I think Edmonton specifically is going to have a lot of the up and downs. But I think there's a lot of positivity that should be surrounding the team just because they've made a couple good moves over the offseason. I think they put themselves in a good position to do well this year.
Yeah, that's what I find the most interesting is that this is a team who on paper looks better than it has looked in ages. 2016, 17, like when they had a really strong top six, this team is better on paper than it has been in a very, very long time. Yet for some reason, while we look at those things and we say, oh, this is really good, and we are excited about it, kind of underneath the layer bubbling up is that every move is dissected and usually from the negative point of view before it turns out to be okay. And we're going to talk about a few of those things. But Colin, I'm going to ask you this. You talked about social media, and it's absolutely true that is one of the places where you're going to get the most polarizing opinions on the team. Do you think it's the certain type of fan on social media that really is the loudest? Is it the advanced analytics crowd, the stats guys that really speak for a lot of the negativity? Or is it just in general, we've been here, we've done that, and we've not won? What do you think it is on social media that fans just seem so eager to go negative before they go positive? Like the two games, just preseason, obviously, they look great. They look really, really good. They look like everything that they should look like on paper, but yet we're still sort of kind of like maybe just barely starting to turn the corner. Is it a certain type of audience or is it everybody?
I think it's everybody to a certain extent, just that, again, like the losing over such a long period of time like they did, I think kind of has everyone still a bit sour. But I do think the analytics community plays a big part in it. Like you look with the Darnell Nurse signing, for example, this offseason, I had seen one guy say it was maybe the worst contract ever signed before he played any games on it. So I think lots of stuff like that, it kind of gets, I think it puts, everyone sees it and then all of a sudden gets drawn to negatives. You've seen with the Duncan trade again from the analytics, even Devon Shore, which really shouldn't have been anything big. It was a pretty minor sign-in. So I think the analytic community kind of gets the wheel like turning and then everyone else just kind of piles on from there.
Julian, do you think it's a matter, and you would know in Toronto seems to be the center of the universe when it comes to hockey, right? And everybody loves to talk about the Maple Leafs and how they're supposed to be so good, yet for some whatever reason, they're a fantastic regular season team, can't do it in the playoffs. There's a lot of parallels between the Oilers and the Maple Leafs. Is this one of those things where, the fans are just looking for a reason to go, yeah, this isn't as good. Let's go far in. Let's jump right off that cliff and really, really dramatic about how bad it is. And then, oh, hey, we won. Fantastic, right? Is that what's happening here in Edmonton, do you think?
I think mostly it comes down to impulse. I think, like I said, the up and downs of a season are what gets the fan to react certain ways. So, when they see one play made, whether it's a minor part of the game or a major part of the game, it's going to get that impulse reaction without much thinking. There's an initial reaction that's going to happen when a play breaks down and someone scores on a goal on the team. Let's say there's an impulse saying, why did he do that, and starting to blame somebody else instantly. So I think that's going to be kind of the first thing that fans go through is the impulse of saying who's wrong in this situation, rather than thinking, okay, maybe he was trying to do this, and kind of thinking it through to see maybe the thought process and it's easy for us to judge watching it on a screen rather than playing it in the game, obviously, because things happen so much faster in the game. I'll give you an example. I was at a cottage this weekend with a couple of my cousins and my uncles and my little father-son kind of fishing trip deal. And the preseason just started. So before even the preseason game was played, here we are dissecting the Leafs offseason, dissecting, who's going to do what, who should play with who. And we haven't even seen anybody on the ice yet. Right. This guy shouldn't have been signed. This guy should be up. We should have traded this guy. So I think no matter what team you cheer for or what stage of the season it is, you're going to have those impulses and the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, no matter what.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to see how quickly people in Edmonton change their mind. Now, obviously all of this, the winning, losing will make all the difference in the world, right? If the Oilers come in and they have a fantastic start, things will change. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things that happened this offseason, which really the crowd we're talking about, the negative got really loud and really quickly. Duncan Keith is one of the big ones. That was a huge one for a lot of fans. And I'll fully admit, I was a little negative when it came to the trade and how the trade was consummated, so to say, the negotiations from Ken Holland. I did not like that part of it. That said, I do like Duncan Keith. I think he's a heck of a player and definitely was one of the best defensemen in his generation. And I think he could still offer a lot. But there's some stuff going on behind the scenes with Duncan Keith, whether it's the trade itself, whether it's the fact that he decided to take a little while to get vaccinated and now he's quarantining, so he's missing part of training camp. Everybody seems to look at this Duncan Keith deal and nobody seems to want to give it. I mean, there are those that are defending it and going, okay, well, come on, like, let's give him a chance. But they're being drowned out by the people who are like, this is a terrible trade. He's too old. He's too slow. He makes too much money. Oh, there's your leader. Colton, what do you make of all this Duncan Keith drama?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because, like you, I didn't like the way the trade played out. I just thought not retaining any salary, anything. But the unfortunate part is I think a lot of people are now judging Keith, the player, even though he had nothing to do with that. And I think really, unless he comes in, I think, and plays outstanding, I think he's really – people are going to rag on him quite a bit. I think if he makes one little mistake here or there early in the season, I think that negativity will come out and it's just too bad because he, like I said, he hasn't really done anything to warrant that at this point. So hopefully he can get off to a great start and change that. But if not, I think it could just pile on from here.
And it's interesting because people tend to create their own narrative about this guy, right? Like anybody who's watched hockey for the last little while knows who and what Duncan Keith was. He was fantastic. He was All-Star, Canada, a couple cups, a couple Norris trophies. Like this was a very, very, very good defenseman. And most of those people, and I can't speak for all, but I would assume most of those people did not watch him closely in Chicago last year. So we don't really know what exactly we're getting. We can only work off what he was, what we think he might be because he's older. But a lot of people just want to go and write this dude off. And they're just going to say, you know what? There's no possible way he's going to be worth that kind of money. Julian, what do you think the odds are that Duncan Keith can come in here? And like Colton said, he's going to have to play fantastic hockey to turn that narrative around and get people to kind of go, oh man, maybe we're wrong on this one. Maybe we misjudge us. What does Duncan Keith have to do? Is it possible that he can do it?
Yeah, he's got a pretty big label on him right now just because of that contract. But I just think he has to come in, and he's a low-key guy as it is. So he's just going to fly under the radar and do what he does best, and that's play a good defensive game in his own zone and eat up minutes and not be really noticed. You know, if he goes about his business like he has before, he should be, you know, leaned on in plenty of defensive situations. I think that if he doesn't have to contribute at a high level offensively, and if people are expecting that, then they're not going to be happy with the result. They have other guys to do that job anyway, which I think is clear in Edmonton. So I think that it's going to be tough for him regardless, just because of that number that he's at. And it's unfortunate, but I think he could be a big contributor in the playoffs. And that's kind of where it's going to probably make or break the way he is. Like, it's almost like in the playoffs, there's a fresh slate and you wipe everything clean from the regular season. So people tend to forget what happens in the regular season if you have a good playoff. You see that in all sports, baseball, you know, especially if you go on a hot run and you perform there, then they almost say, you know what, I don't even care that he didn't play well for 82 games of the regular season. You know, at least he showed up when it mattered. So I think he has a couple of opportunities to kind of, you know, make a name or get in the good books of the fans. And the playoffs might be the best part or the best spot to do that. But they obviously have to get there first.
Yeah, we're talking about opposite ends of what's been happening in the last little while for the Oilers, right? Fantastic regular season team, not very good in the playoffs or the play-in. And Duncan Keith, hopefully, will be good in both, but can really add that layer that the Oilers potentially were missing for the playoffs. He's going to get a lot of benefit of the doubt from the officials. He's been there. He's won it. He knows what it feels like to outperform what you've done in the regular season. I'm just hoping that he gets a fair shake from the fans before we get to that point, right? Because we all assume that the Oilers, based on what they've done in the past and what they look like on paper, should be a playoff team. They're probably going to be competing with Vegas in the Pacific Division for the lead in that that division. So they should be in the playoffs, but I'm just hoping that people give Duncan Keith the opportunity to show his full value and not write him off before the playoffs even come, because he might be the most valuable he'll ever be to this team at that time, right? Like, he's going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to be a very good player, I'm hoping. But in the playoffs, I think there's a different level for this guy. And from everything we've seen in the past of him when it comes to playoff time, this is a dude that steps it up and above a huge level that he was already setting a very high bar. Cold, I'm curious, if we're switching gears a little bit, about the goaltending. Here's another issue in Edmonton that seems to just never go away, right? And I think Bob Stauffer said it while doing the play-by-play of the color tonight, is that the Oilers were the 7th best goaltending save percentage tandem in the league last year. You'd never know that listening to the fans, though, right? Mike Smith was good last year, not wonderful the year before. Mikko Koskinen was pretty good the year before, but not good last year. So this tandem, though, seems when they get on a roll to be pretty good. Yet nobody wants to look at this team like this goaltending's even got a chance of doing anything successful. Everybody's writing it off. Mike Smith's too old. Mikko Koskinen's got a bad glove. He lets in too many leaky goals. Some of those things might be true, but we don't know that the goaltending tandem can't do it. One, are you of the opinion that this is a goaltending tandem that cannot get there? Or are you of the opinion, yes, they can, and fans just need to back off a second?
It's tough to, like, I was kind of one of those people. I was hoping that they were going to get a goaltender this offseason, like a bona fide number one. But like, you hear Mike Smith had comments the other day, like everyone's talking to him as if if he's 10 years older all of a sudden. Like, he's only a year older. It's not like anything's really changed. So I think, like, in the playoffs last year, he was probably their best player, I thought. I thought he gave them a chance in all 4 games they played. And I think Koskinen, I kind of expect their play to level off a bit. I don't think Smith will be as good as he was last year, even though I hope he is. But I think Koskinen will be a lot better than he was last year. So I'm not too worried about it, at least during the regular season. Again, playoffs is a whole different animal, but I don't think it's as big of an issue as it's being made out to be by some people.
Julian, I'm not going to get into any name dropping I'm not going to go there, but I did write an article about a question that was asked of Mikko Koskinen before he ever played a single game. And it stirred up a lot of debate and a lot of comments, and people were a little shocked that this media personality asked the question in the way that he asked it, which was basically he asked 3 or 4 questions in a row talking about how Koskinen just didn't perform well last season. Fair. Then he asked, well, what do you think of the fact that every fan would rather have any other goalie but you? Odd question, right? Guy hasn't played a single game this year. Kind of puts him in, like, what do you do with that if you're Mikko Koskinen, right? Like, is that what we're looking at now? Like, are we talking about addressing players as though they're totally write-offs before we even give them a chance to perform better than they did last season? Like, what did you make of that? And we won't drop names. We won't go into that. I know this person. I have no issue with this person, but I was surprised by the question and the way that it was phrased. So what did you make of that?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit of a head scratcher. I'm assuming everybody kind of had the same point of view on it. And obviously working in the media is not an easy job, trying to get everybody the information, break certain things. So it's a fine line to walk. And I think that, as a fan perspective, like, okay, everybody knows that he didn't do well, and I'm sure he knows it of himself and expects better of himself, Koskinen, obviously. But to kind of out it and address it the way he did, I think it could have been phrased better, worded better, and might not have been the best way to bring it up. But anyway, it happened, and I think that it's tough to see, people react that way, and it's tough for a goaltender who wasn't even in the country to come back and have to, address certain things like that. And it for sure has got to play a little bit of mind games with him. And I think he expects better. And I'm one that, I don't think that the goaltending situation for the Oilers is great, but I do think there's potential for it to go really, really bad. There's definitely that there. And we all know why, because of the aging Mike Smith and Koskinen's inconsistencies, and that's nothing to hide. But I just think that, there's still potential for it to go well, and you have to give him benefit of the doubt because Mike Smith did it before last year. And there's no reason to believe that he can't do the same thing again, although it's against odds. And Koskinen has shown flashes of being good as well. So, they have to give him benefit of the doubt. And, until we see it, it's tough to say that they're not going to be as good as or what they were the year before.
Cool. And are we in a situation where we're running a danger here of being so negative that it's like harmful to what the team can possibly do? Like, I'm imagining if I'm Mikko Koskinen, I'm not in his head. I don't know what he thought after he got that question or the series of questions. And he's like, what the heck? Like, he just had this look on his face like, why is this dude attacking me, right? Are we in a situation where we're in such a danger of approaching the players and asking? I get media needs to ask the hard-hitting questions sometimes, because when they don't, they get creamed by the fans for not asking hard-hitting questions. I totally get that. But you're almost running this guy out of town and setting this example like, man, no matter what I do, I'm just going to be looked at as like, and Julian would know this watching the Toronto Maple Leafs. They do this with Mitch Marner, and they do this with anytime somebody is not playing up to their level all the time, the fans tend to go in these passionate markets and like run them out of town. Adam Larson's in town, for example, with Seattle. He confirmed today that his leaving Edmonton had to do with his father's passing and the family tragedy that comes with that, and how it feels for them to come to Edmonton and how he feels being. Totally understand that. I feel for him. I absolutely understand the need to get a fresh start somewhere else. It had nothing to do with the Taylor Hall trade, had nothing to do with the way the fans talked to him, but everybody assumed when he left that was the problem, that the fans were all over him. And now we're looking at this with a lot of players who leave, that maybe that is the issue. Maybe these guys are like, man, no matter what I do, they just want me gone, right? Unless you're Connor McDavid and no one will ever want you gone. It's kind of the way that it goes. Are we in a dangerous zone now with guys like Mikko Koskinen and other players that the second they make a mistake, we're running them out?
I mean, I guess so. I think like we have to keep in mind, it's definitely not just Edmonton. Like you said, it's any big hockey market. So I mean, I think there is sometimes it's an attractive option for players to go to teams kind of down south that have less of a media following for that exact reason, less pressure, less negativity, kind of all that comes with it. As far as like the thing with Koskinen goes, yeah, it's tough because like I think everyone is like on the media side is wanting to see this team succeed, all Oilers media. And I think giving a guy a question like that before the season even starts, I don't see how it's helping him at all. I think if anything, it kind of puts bad thoughts in his head before the season even starts, puts him kind of in a bad mental place, and then kind of he might just kind of fall down from there. So I think really, if anything, you kind of want to be picking the guys up right now. And that's just a tough question to ask before the season even begins, I think. And who knows, maybe if you asked that media reporter if he could ask that question differently in a different way, he very well might. It might have just been a simple mistake on his part too. So just one of those things that can happen. But yeah.
That was my issue with it, was the fact that it was asked in a way that it's probably going to get Koskinen. Maybe he's the perfect mentally prepared athlete that it doesn't faze him, that it doesn't bother him at all. But I would think he's like walking on eggshells now, right? Like he gets that question. He's constantly rethinking his game, every move and decision that he makes. He's like, oh, exactly. My God, the fans are going to be all over me. I can't possibly win no matter what I do here. I'm going to be fantastic. I'll have 2 shutouts in a row, and then I'll let the first goal in on the next game, and everybody will want me gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of like, it's not really what you want your players to be thinking when they go into the season, that no matter what they do, it's not good enough. We lost Julian for a second. I think Julian's back, though, with us.
Back.
So, but I'll start with Colton on this next one. I don't even know if we can do this. I'm not sure if we can talk about this topic without getting into personal politicals and, beliefs, and I don't want to go there necessarily, but is there a way to address the Josh Archibald situation without talking about his personal choices in terms of vaccinations and things like that? Like, can we separate hockey from, his choice not to get vaccinated and what that's going to mean for this team moving forward? Like, I'm under the assumption the Oilers are not going to cater to him. Like, they've been patient. They're going to wait, see what's going on. But I don't think he's going to be with the Oilers this year if he chooses not to get vaccinated. I just don't see him as he's a good player on a depth role, a penalty kill, things like that, but he's just not the guy that you got to cater to. And I don't see that happening. But the difference here is that nobody seems to be looking at this as Josh Archibald is, unfortunately not going to be with the team, and we can it's personal attack, personal attack, personal attack. Like, I don't know what to make of this. Is this just a opinion on vaccinations and the pandemic, or is this like a hockey choice? Like, what do we make of this Archibald situation?
I think it's definitely more of an attack on the whole not getting vaccinated thing. And like you said, I don't want to get into that a ton, but I think as far as is it hockey related, yes, absolutely. Just because of the fact that I think Ken Holland said he'd be missing at least 30, 35 games, something like that.
Yeah, could be 40% of the games.
I mean, that's a player taking up a roster spot, some of your cap space. So yeah, I'm a fan of the player, but like you said, he's not like he's expendable, right? They can have someone else fill in his role. Will they miss him? Yeah, they probably will a bit, but I don't think it's anything too crazy. And like you said, I unless he changes his mind here, which I mean he's had quite a bit of time, so I kind of doubt he would at this point. If he doesn't, I don't see him being on this team.
Julian, you think it could be distracting for the Oilers? Like, if he does play, he's skating in Edmonton right now. I don't know if he's going to play any games. They could use him at home and then just not send him on the road. I don't know that you want to do that necessarily, because then you're moving your roster around when they could be successful and on a streak and all that stuff. I can't imagine with fans back in the building that you're not going to get two totally opposite reactions, especially in Alberta here, because you're going to have a lot of people who are totally pro-vaccinations and some who are absolutely anti-vaccinations. So how do you have him come into the lineup and not have a very vocal crowd expressing their opinion one way or the other about this? Is it a distraction to the Oilers?
Yeah, it's a very touchy subject. It's very delicate too. And in terms of the fan aspect, I mean, they're going to be divided, and it's going to be a somewhat something to talk about for sure. So it could become somewhat of a distraction, like you said, even just shuffling them in and out of the lineup, depending on whether they're home or away. So, I mean, that alone is not allowing the team to get any consistency or any chemistry, especially in the bottom six. So I think that is almost playing himself out of a spot on the team, unfortunately. I think they have, like Colton said, they have guys that he's expendable. There's other guys that can come in, and that's probably going to be Colton Seavier's job to steal basically from him. And he plays a similar style game, a little bit tougher, very versatile. Can play the wing, can play center, and can play on the penalty kill. So I think at the end of the day, if that's his decision, and that's something he'll have to live with. Unfortunately, the times we live in is sometimes your decisions for the team have to be based on personal decisions as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's touchy. I didn't really want to go there and get too into whatever. We're not going to express our personal opinions about all this stuff. We won't go into that whole area and let things get out of hand here. But what I just wanted to make sure is that we understood the difference between hockey decisions, personal decisions, passion, your belief that the Oilers doing the right things or that people are doing the right thing. It's just tough because we're in such a passionate market and everybody loves this team. They almost love it so much that it seems like they hate it, right? It's just a really weird kind of situation.
So if they moved on from him, though, would they have to, I guess they would have to buy it. Like, what would they do with the contract? Would you just bury it? Because he's on one more year, right?
Well, there's a few options.
How would you do that?
Yeah, he could opt out, in which case the Oilers would then have the option to remove his contract from the books completely or move it over 1 year. So that could happen, which I don't think they'll probably do. They could send it to Bakersfield, but Bakersfield has a policy in place that nobody who hasn't been double vaccinated can even get into the building. So I don't know how that's going to work. And he would be in the States, traveling really just in the States. So it would make sense for games, but if you can't get in there, then that's an issue. I don't know that they want to keep him here because, like you said, they will get cap relief for every game he doesn't play as a result of not being able to do it because of quarantine. But you're taking up a roster spot. You're shuffling around your line. It's a weird and sticky situation. And I just don't know what the Oilers want to do
on that rabbit hole.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm thinking they'll just find a way to remove him from the roster and let it sort itself out later. Hopefully that's not a big problem, but it's like there's teams dealing with it. When you're in Canada, that's the issue, right? Because you can't go to the States and come back without a 14-day quarantine. So it really dramatically affects anybody who's making this decision in Canada. And so it's tough, right? I don't think they can trade him either. Like maybe you could move him to a team where they're only playing American teams and they're not. Yikes, I don't know, right? If you're in the Pacific Division, you're playing a lot of Canadian teams, so it's tough. And I don't know if anybody wants to take on the potentially problematic situation. So I don't really know. Let's leave it here, though. Let's try to end this on a positive note. I'll say this. I understand people love this team. I understand people are passionate about this team. I understand that we all want to see this team win. And if we could look at it glasses half full all the time, we absolutely would. But when you care about something so much and something doesn't go right, and it hasn't gone right for the past couple of years, I get it. You're a little negative until then. What I'll say to the fans, anybody watching this video and anybody, try to look at this team as an opportunity to be different, better, newer, fresher, to give you what you've been hoping for the last little bit, because this is a good team. This is an excellent team on paper who's been constructed better than it has been in a very long time, who has players in the roles that they're supposed to be in. I think this could be a good year. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, there are holes in the goaltending. Yes, there might be some warts on defense, but I think it's a good team. And I'm excited as I've ever been. And I say this every year because I'm always excited about the Oilers, but I'm as excited as I've ever been about this season and the potential for it. I think the Oilers could be very, very good. Colin, what message would you like to send to the fans of the Oilers who maybe are negative, maybe who want to stay positive, but they're getting all the negativity and it's kind of bringing them down? What would you say to the fans who are watching this team and what to expect out of this year?
Well, what to say, I think, is just, I think we've seen, like, in the past decade, how much worse it can be, right? Like, we have Connor McDavid now, Leon Draisaitl, two of the best players, and obviously in McDavid, the best player in the game. So there's still a lot of positive things to take. As far as what to see in the season, I think, like you said, they'll be battling with Vegas, I think, for the top spot in that division. And then from there, we'll see, right? I think a lot of the negativity comes from a lack of playoff success with this core outside of that 2016-17 year. So I think if they're able to go on a bit of a playoff run this year, I think that could quiet that a lot. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Julian, you have a message? I mean, you know from a different perspective what it feels like, right? Because you've been a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs for a long time, and you're still struggling like a lot of us are in Edmonton with the Maple Leafs and their production and their success rate. Is there a message that you would send to the Oilers fans that maybe you've tried to send to Maple Leafs fans before? Like, is there a positive spin that you can put on something that feels negative right now, but there's really actually some really good vibes surrounding this team?
Yeah, I would say don't overreact, which is easier said than done for any fan base, I guess. But, I would just say stay the course and trust the process for the most part, because I think they did a lot of good things this offseason, the Oilers, and Ken Holland pushed a lot of the right buttons, I think, and addressed much of the needs that they needed to in the offseason. And if you watch that third goal, I'd be excited about that Zach Hyman signing and that chemistry that you saw in the Kraken game, because that was a really, really nice goal to see. There's a lot of positive to see on this team. And I think that, if they can, they have a lot to look forward to. It doesn't look like too difficult of a division for them to be in, which is positive for them heading into the season. And if the goaltending can hold up, then sky's the limit, I think, for this team, because you have two of the best players in the world, like Colton said. So they could carry you through areas that most teams don't otherwise have players to do that for. So there's a lot of positive to see here, and just stay the course and trust the process that Holland's putting in place.
Well, I appreciate you guys. This was fun. I mean, it's a negative topic that we tried to put a positive spin on. And I guess we can say, hey, fans, sky's not falling yet. If you want to take shots after this team drops the ball or has some problems, go ahead. Fair critiques are all good and it's all good. But, just wait a minute, right? Yeah. See what this team can do, see where they go, give them an opportunity to either prove you wrong or prove you right, depending on which side of the fence you sit on. I think it's going to be an exciting year. I'm super looking forward to it. While only preseason, the two games that we have watched have been incredible. They outshot Calgary 49-15 in their own barn. They're up 3-0. I don't even know now. It's probably the second period what the score is, but it was 3-0 at the end of the first. There's just a lot of good things happening with this team. And I would hope that you guys, fans who are negative, enjoy it, right? Enjoy the season, because this is going to be a really good team and it should be fun. Don't freak out. Don't lose sleep. Enjoy what this team is going to offer you. You got two of the best players in the world on it, and you've got a really good depth at your forward core and some really fun pieces. So Colton, Julian, thank you. I appreciate it. For everybody else, this has been Oilers Overtime on the Hockey Raiders. Check out the YouTube videos. For other content, go to thehockeyraiders.com to get all of the news rumors, articles about the Oilers that we talk about every week. And we'll talk to you guys next week.